Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? It is Yamaz, Alexis, and Adam here as the Impractical Blacksmiths in our Sunday morning gathering. What is going on? How y'all doing? In the chat, we've got Turtle Dust. We've got David Hastings. Congratulations. Welcome aboard to Bubba. Thank you for the support. Very much thank you. And we've got Transcendental Art Studios and several lurkers, I believe. So hello to Tim and all the rest of the lurkers. Hello to Ranged. How y'all doing? I'm still coming a little bit off that sickness from a couple weeks ago. Like I feel great, but sinuses are still like so, and a bit of a cough. But other than that, I feel fine. I've had a very weird couple of weeks, and I'll get into that. Involved watching, my brother's place and his animals, and some of the weird stuff that happened over in their neck of the woods while they were gone. So like I almost got laid. But yeah, well,
almost in the operative word.
Oh, it was crazy.
Horseshoes and hand grenades.
Oh my god, it was. No. Like the almost is like there. Anyway, crazy people out there. Excuse me. But with that, I suppose we can move into introductions and the how was your fortnight? No. I said I refuse to say that. How was your dose
You can't
weeks?
take it back.
Take it back. How was your game of Fortnite
take it
there?
back.
What's your KDA? How's your game of Fortnite?
Do I want to start first, or what's going on?
Who's
going first? Okay,
go ahead.
so my fortnight was started off with work. Yeah, that always does. And do you want to say good morning to Deranged, Boar, Debarker, Child Hushed, of course, Kevin, and John Brunel. Also watching for the shock. Technically, it's morning here as well because of the change of daylight savings in the US. It's now it's officially 1:30 Monday morning here. So with us pushing back the starting time as we did a few months back, it's now also morning for me. Just very very early morning.
It's all in the planning.
And I'm of course on my changeover. So this fortnight, of course, like I said, first week was work, so nothing unusual there. This week, I was supposed to get a lot of forging done, but the week took a different turn. For those of you that have been regularly watching and listening, I've been supposed to have my shed. The concrete for my new workshop, my shed, put in this week. So start of the week was a mad rush to get the trenches for the foundations that I dug cleaned out. I had to drop the holes, the post holes in the corners a little bit deeper. They were originally dug to 600 mils. The concreter said I needed to drop them to 900 mils. So put together my new auger. That goes on the back of my tractor and knocked them out relatively quickly, and then of course had to go through and clean up the actual pad, so I ended up filling them back in and having to clean them out with a shovel. So the first part of the week was a mad rush to get that done, only for, unfortunately, the concreter wasn't able to secure a concrete truck this week, and had another job that was still using his formwork. So unfortunately that didn't get done this week, so it's now scheduled for next week. And I said to him, if it doesn't get done this week, I'm not going to be there to help him. So he can't charge me for the help that I don't provide if it's not my fault. I wasn't there to be able to provide it. So that kind of took out my week, just doing that. But on that same note, it means that soon I'll be able to move all my stuff that's in the tiny temporary workshop down to my proper real big one. I also got to hang out with my dad this weekend because his large actual truck. Not tiny, not utility, but his actual. He's got a 15-ton box heavy rig here that's sitting on my block. It unfortunately, the diaphragm for the air brakes blew out a couple of months back, and he's been waiting for the parts to come in, and they finally arrived end of the week. So he come around this weekend to put that back in, only to find that the one of the airlines that screw in the connection's slightly different. So now he's had to go away and get a new connector for that airline. So hopefully that he comes back out soon and fixes that out. But just being able to hang out with him and spend time with him is good. I know that's running out. So yeah, other than that, it's just been absolute flat out. Because I have a show next week. I'm actually taking half of the week next week off in order to do an adult themed show where they've invited me to sell some hand forged adult related products.
Like
so
tax
I'm
forms.
Yeah, so no, I'm making I'm making collars and cuffs and stuff like that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's lucrative money in that. Let me tell you, I've quoted a few of the things, and yes, I'm going to be making it. Touch wood, going to be making a bit of money out of that. So I've got to pull my finger out and do that. So I've taken a few extra days off next week towards the end of the week in order to get some time in the forge and knock up a few of them. So, but basically, it's just been me trying to get things together before the wet season sets in. So it's November now, and traditionally or typically the rains set in during the start of December-ish, and I have more work than I can get done, that I need to get done before those first rains hit, because if I don't get it done, then basically I lose control and I'm not really able to do anything until about April. That's the reason why my wife insisted that the workshop was a necessity to get done before the wet season sets in, because she watched what happened over last wet season where I wasn't able to get out to my workshop, and I kind of got a little bit of seasonal depression because I wasn't able to do anything. Working in a foot deep of water is not fun. You end up with,
it depends on what you're working on.
When you're working in a workshop, forging in a foot deep of water, it's not fun.
The quench tank is right there. Come on.
Yeah, but when you drop forge your piece, you're kind of hosed.
Exactly, you lose it completely. So she insisted that it had to my workshop had to get finished this year because she was sick and tired of putting up with me being flat and not very happy. So at least with the workshop finished, I'll be able to go down, even if it doesn't have power. I'll be able to actually go down and do some work, which will be good. So, but it also means that around the house I'll be able to clean up as well, because as I'm sure many of you know, as a blacksmith, you end up kind of becoming a hoarder, and you have all sorts of stuff.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All sorts of stuff stacked up and kept around your workshop, and you go, "Oh, use that one," and it just. So
I'm like keeping empty medicine bottles.
Yes. I like many of you. I have 300 ton of crap just piled up around my workshop, and my wife doesn't like it being around the house. So once the workshop's built, I can actually go and take them all down, all that type of stuff down there, and organize it and get it away from the house. So yeah, that's what's been happening with me. That's my fortnight, nice and short and sweet, and that's it. So let's move on to someone else.
Yeah. It's been a fortnight. Well, let's see. It started out, at the beginning of 2 weeks ago. I blew the tranny in my big truck. The Allison 7-speed transmission's been bulletproof, 230,000 miles. I split the case clean in half, and now it's
That's what
sitting over
happened to
there
me.
on the deadline.
Sorry, no, like seriously, splitting the transfer case.
Yeah, well, not the transfer case, the case to the main box.
Okay, yeah, I split in the Allison transmission. Everybody said, "Oh, they're bulletproof," and I spun mine in half. I know exactly kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's sitting over there on the deadline because apparently it's like $38,000 for a new one, and man, I'm not sure when or if they're gonna get around to that. So I'm driving my spare for the foreseeable future. Not that that truck works a little bit better, but it's not nearly as good in the creature comforts. It doesn't have as much room. It's not an extended cab like mine is. So there's that, and I'm dealing with having to deal with all of that stuff, and then of course the political climate did not shift in my direction favorably.
Whoop.
Squirrel.
No, we've lost you.
Uh,
No, hang on, wait. Hang on with.
yeah, how about now?
Yeah, there we go.
What happened? My soundboard just turned off. That was weird. It was just like, oh, nope, you don't talk about that.
No politics. Stay away from politics.
I mean,
right. So anyway,
we don't have to go deep into it, but yeah.
I'm not gonna get real far into it, but beyond the fact that I'm now in preparations to vacate here. So yeah, I'm working on it, and I got a lot of paperwork to do. I got a lot of things to line out. I got to save a bunch of money, and I should be ready to go at a moment's notice. Well, 2 weeks, starting about May 1st, and I don't know if or when, but I'm going to be ready to go in case. And I've got triggering events like when this happens or this happens, I'm buying a plane ticket and I'm gone. And so that's there are triggering events, and if those things don't happen, I might still like kind of
Test the
ride
waters,
it out,
so to
but I
speak.
doubt it. I doubt it because at the end of the day, it's going to be a grand adventure. So
But see, here's because I have not talked with you about it, anything. I have admittedly I've been exceedingly busy this past several weeks. But yeah, no, I know you had mentioned all of that, and it's like, whether those triggering events happen or not, like still considering taking the opportunity if you are in a position to, if it wouldn't, fuck you over financially, explore the world.
well, no, and that's it. I mean, like if things go to plan, and they say we're gonna be so busy come Q1 that we won't have time to pee, which is good. I should be able to have 12 grand saved up by my earliest leave date, and that'd help tremendously. And then of course, then at that point, it's getting to my destination. Getting there is the hard part. I mean, like actually, feet on the ground. I have several options, and so I think like with my first option, I'm gonna give it a shot. And like I said, worst case scenario is they put me right back on the plane before I step off. But they also have agents on the ground where like in our country, that if you look like somebody that's going to apply for amnesty, they will stop you from boarding the plane. And so I got to avoid that whole situation altogether. And then and then at the end of the day, if I have to, I can go to Canada. The company I work for has divisions in Canada as well, and I cannot. Well, I don't know that I can go to work for them, but I can ask. And since I've been here for 11 years, I don't see as they'd have a problem letting me pay for an employer sponsored visa going that direction, because they do it down here. They let their people up north pay for their visa, an employer sponsored visa to come work here at RDL. And so I think they might let me do the same thing going the other direction.
Yeah, if you can put yourself in a situation that benefits you, and the company that you currently work for can help you with that, that falls into the thing that we've talked about in this show a lot. Don't burn bridges. If you don't have to, don't burn bridges. You know.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do when I bounce from here, I'm going to go. I'm going to tell the boss. 'Cause I'm going to let the boss know here in the next week or so what I've got going on, and then when it does trigger, I'm gonna be like, look, let's just say I'm on a month of leave of absence. I'm still in them. Don't I didn't quit or whatever. And if customs cuts me loose within a month, I'll email you and let you know, and you can terminate it and move somebody into my room and all that stuff. So. But I am going to play it kind of safe just in case. I
Yeah.
don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and then wind up
Yeah.
being hosed. At least, I can take a month leave of absence, and then if it goes sideways on me, I can just come right back here and ask the boss man, hey, you got anything for me in Edmonton?
Yeah.
So that's my plan, and I don't really. I did say the other night on Roy's stream, but I probably ought to just kind of leave that alone for the time being as to where I'm going, um, for reasons. I don't want to put somebody else on the spot or anything like that. So, and that's my 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm alive. It's been mentally stressful. It's been a very stressful week. Like Wednesday, I pretty much cried all day long. Um, not out of just out of plain sadness, and not sadness for me, sadness for other people. And then Thursday and Friday, I was right as rain. I'm like, I got a plan. I got the plan in motion. I'm checking all the boxes because I've known what was going to happen in this scenario for 2 years. And then yesterday was like I woke up with the impending sense of doom, anxiety that stayed with me all day long. So my brain was just doom scrolling every possible way I was going to die yesterday, and that was fun all day long. I was shaking all day long. It was crazy, and then yeah, it kind of subsided about 9 o'clock last night. I was like, wow, I'm glad that I'm glad. And that's one of those things that I don't even know what causes it. Like it wasn't a particular thing I was afraid of or anything like that. I was just in this perpetual state of fear all day, and that's only happened a few times, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm usually a pretty optimistic person, and those feel it's not something I can control. It's not something I can pinpoint and go, oh, this is what I'm afraid of. What's the worst thing that could happen? Can I cope with it? Yes, I can. All right, problem solved. It's one of those things where I'm like, I feel this way, and I don't know why. BS. Anyways, that's my fortnight. And right now I'm right as rain. I got to go back to work at like 1:45 this afternoon, and well, 2-ish. So to be on location at 4. And Yames, how was your 2 weeks?
Well,
Fortnite.
my 2 weeks
Fortnite.
have been busy. Like the underlaying busy, like in the sense that I'm always busy. It's like you guys know me. If I keep myself busy, you know. Um, excuse me. I spent a lot of it sick. That sucked. Watched, or well, we had, work. Jay and Jeannie ended up having to drive up to Chicago to attend a funeral. And it's like, hey, I was invited because I knew the person as well, family friend. And it's like, well, coincidentally, my, brother and his wife were heading down to Florida for a baby shower. The juxtaposition there is bizarre. And they needed me to watch their animals in house. So it's like work, after last week's show, it was like a week of preparing for all of that, getting that busy work, getting jobs done, getting stuff taken care of here at the house to lock it all down. That safe that I've been dismantling, I've got it down to just its base, excuse me, and a little bit of concrete to bust up, almost off my driveway. And then I went over and sat at my brother's house for like 5 days and got a lot of editing done for the project. And I urge anybody, on that, like, I really try not to promote my side stuff or my other stuff here and, and all that. But if y'all are into D&D and you two, Adam and Alexis, we are winding or getting close to where we'll be winding up to have, public accessible one shots and stuff, so for everybody else to join. But we've been doing the D&D podcast, the D&D 721 podcast, and I've been editing that, and it is a lot of fun. And if y'all can do me a favor, and I'll put the link to it and everything. If y'all can do me the favor of helping us spread the word of that, go on Spotify, listen to some episodes, give us a rating, check it out. Cause it's like this last episode that released on Thursday, on Wednesday, like it was a spooky episode. And I put like binaural beats in it to, in the background. And it's just the editing that I'm trying to do for this is like, I'm trying to do it good because, it's yeah. And if y'all could check that out, I would really appreciate that. And spread it around, help us spread it around. But, that's what I've been spending a lot of time doing. And as to the little jokes and comments that I made, about like, oh, my weeks were, talking about Adam over there making collars and chains and stuff like that. Yeah, I got I was sitting there and some lady came knocking on my brother's door, and asking if she could borrow my phone because hers was, messed up. And I'm like, yeah, sure, here you go. She made a call, and we sat there, she was drinking a beer and I was smoking cigarettes and sitting there on my front porch, or on their front porch, just, shooting the shit. And it's like, she was really horny. she is heading to a horse farm in Kentucky for a couple weeks, but then she'll be back. But she wants to commission a mechanical object. Is what I can say. Okay, because I was talking about, my metal shop and some of the stuff that I built, the power hammer and this and that. And she's like, so machines? And I'm like, I mean, I can, I was talking, that's what it was. I was talking about my my cigarette roller, my hand crank cigarette roller, about how I can turn this into an automated machine where, I'd push a button and it, and she's like, oh, you're good with stuff like that? I'm like, I'm not bad with it. And she asked me what it would cost and, about building her a certain other type of reciprocating machine. And it's like, went into kind of details, and she wanted to do some practical tests is what I'll say before she left. Didn't get a chance to, but yeah. So, like, we'll see how that goes,
Clap.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like, it wasn't my house. I was house sitting, and she was afraid of dogs, and the dogs were barking. She's like, I ain't going in there. It was freaking hilarious. But
you meet some of the strangest people there.
I know. It was absolutely bonkers bananas. I mean, it's like, I mean, I restrained myself, but like it, like it could have gone drama. It could have brought a ton of drama into my life that I'd like, we'll see how it goes. If I never see, it's that kind of situation where, like, craziness attracts to me. Like, craziness just falls into me like I'm a gravity well, which we'll get into in a minute here, Adam and Alexis. But we'll talk gravity wells and all that. But like craziness and insanity kind of follows me like that when it comes to relationships or interpersonal people, whatever. So either I dodged a bullet by, okay, yeah, she's out of the state for now, or missed out on some.
Yourself a new stalker.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, So I do have my window open and a fan in the window, and the cops and ambulances have been back and forth. So if y'all hear that, that's what that is. I'm not closing my window. It's a beautiful day, 67 and sunny. So bite me if it bothers you. Yeah. So that's kind of been my 2 weeks. I'm trying to think of anything else super interesting that is kind of like a global, like, that you guys would be interested in. Saving money rolling cigarettes still. I've done some more calculations. I'm at about $1.50 a pack as opposed to $7 a pack, for my cost. And with the way that what I'm smoking, pipe tobacco instead of cigarette tobacco, it's natural. It's 100% tobacco as opposed to adding chemicals. Because I looked at cigarette tobacco, it is twice as expensive than pipe tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
Less chemicals is what I'm saying. I didn't say healthier, I said less chemicals. Okay. And the cost. The biggest thing I am feeling right now is I have more money in my account because I'm not spending, $100 a week on cigarettes,
Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm smoking less.
I pick up one of these every 6 weeks for $27.
Sure.
Now don't get me wrong, that's a me thing. I mean, like I can't. Different people, different amounts. Like my daughter goes through one in like 9 days. Me, it takes me 6 weeks to use one up. But
yeah, my brother does it
so much better than I was doing. Because before when I was smoking, I was going through a half pack a day on average, at $10 a pack. And I mean, even that was just like, oh man, this is costing me a buttload of money. And yeah, somehow yeah. And I can even actually like with one of these. I mean, I'll wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I might not touch it till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh, I got to hit that. I got to. It's not until later in the day, and so I maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 pulls a day. I mean, so it's not all that many. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
but that's why they last me for 6 weeks, and other people they're just like on that summit all the time, and in 10 days it's empty, and I'm like, oh, man, I wouldn't be able to breathe if I did that.
Yeah, I was raised not to be a quitter, and if you do something, do it with gusto and flair.
Well, I mean, even I shouldn't even be doing that. I mean, because it's one of those things that conflicts with my HRT. So,
right. Now, I did tease about the gravity wells and the insanity following me and stuff like that. That's kind of segues into our topic, and I'll tell you here's the reason we're going to do this as a topic. Number one, we all love science. And especially, that speculation of science and stuff like that. As you remember from us talking about the fact that aliens built Atlantis and the pyramids. And with no, from the people who brought you magnesium, we bring you, let's tie in blacksmithing to the cosmic scene, to the interstellar colonization scene, okay, or interplanetary colonization scene. We're talking advancing the human race through technology, and that technology is tied directly to blacksmithing as the basis, the creation of all modern day technology. I'm assuming because Adam said that he could tie in blacksmithing to interplanetary colonization and interstellar travel, and the cosmic the voids out in the cosmos and all that, and how it all works, how it all ties together. And as you all know, with an accent like that, we could listen to the chemical composition of milk be described by this man and be entertained.
So how we actually got
That's
on
debatable.
how we actually got onto the topic? Well, we're talking about before the show. We were talking about how we're actually just debating how long we are off being a intrasolar system or interplanetary or intrasolar species, which of course is the prerequisite for becoming a Category 1 civilization. So Category 1 civilization is interplanetary or intrasolar, having on more planets within their solar system, and working towards using 100% of the energy from their star. Now, and of course from that we got on to becoming an intersolar system or intersolar or interstellar civilization and working from there. And we also discussed things about the Boots void and all that type of thing. And as part of that, and I said, actually, I think I can tie that into blacksmithing and how what we do as blacksmiths now is actually really important to the progression of our species becoming an interplanetary or eventually an interstellar or interstellar civilization. And the reason being is now when we leave Earth's gravity well, we use rockets and all that type of thing to get into space. And once we're in space or in orbit at least, we still have to use some sort of propulsion to get to other planets. So weight and baggage is going to be something that's very important. Now, things that are essential to setting up a colony, for example, some sort of buildings, basic building blocks, and food, water, the ability to create water or find water is very important. But just like it has been for any colonization or any expansion here on Earth for the last thousands of years, expanding on a colony is always going to come from the resources of that colony. A really good example and part of what eventually led to, I believe, the American Revolution was, yes, there was a whole taxation without representation, but fundamentally it was more the British's restriction on the Americas producing and having that colonial production of their own materials without sending it back for processing to the UK. For example, as we discussed,
we had talked about that in the colonial episode where we were talking about the those
iron
metal
production
workers, the iron production,
yeah,
and how that got tipped on its head.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe a similar sort of thing is going to happen when we eventually start branching out and colonizing other planets in our solar system. The basis will be there in the sense of we'll have access to growing food and finding water and stuff like that, but the actual making and expanding of things on the ground, so to speak, will come back to, at least in the beginning, to traditional crafts. So, for example, blacksmithing is going to be essential, in my opinion, because there are going to be tools that need to be repaired, and basic tools like hammers, like chisels, be that rock chisels or something like that, pickaxes, that type of thing. They will need to be, because tools like that on the ground will be a limited resource. considering that, for example, even Mars is a 3-month journey from Earth one way. So
yeah, if you break a
we go there,
screwdriver, you're gonna need a screwdriver. You can't wait 3 months for another one.
exactly, and that's just the trip. That's not the whole planning. That's not the whole, getting it made and then put onto a ship, and then the ship coming in there.
And that window is every 2 years.
Yeah,
Exactly. So you've got, you're going to have then you've also got the scarcity as well. You might only take 10 screwdrivers with you, for example. Well, if you break all of them, you're kind of up shit creek without a paddle. So you're going to have, sure, we might have things like, by that stage.
Damn it, Bill. How many times have I told you not to use a screwdriver as a pry bar?
Exactly. So there's that scarcity, and this also ties into a little bit of research I've been doing on my week at work, which I didn't explain during my how was your week, how was your fortnight. But at work, so at the start of next year, there's actually going to be a historic festival here in Darwin. It's actually across Australia, but Northern Territory, of course, focuses on the Northern Territory. It's called History Week. And so that's run by a national. It's called the Australian the Heritage Trust here in Australia, and they do a week where in your area you focus on something heritage. And a couple of years ago in Darwin, they actually have a park where the original buildings for when Darwin was explored by the Goyder Party. They have like the outlines of those buildings in that park, and one of them, I'm fairly convinced, was one of the original blacksmith shop. Now, in the Northern Territory of Australia, the first settlement was actually in 1824, or started in 1824, around the time Brisbane as a settlement was started as well, when Brisbane was founded. And the first 4 settlements in the Northern Territory failed because the supply ships from Sydney would take 3 to 6 months to arrive. And so they couldn't keep up their supplies of food, essential foods and stuff like that, even though Indonesia isn't that far, is actually a hell of a lot closer to Sydney than to Darwin. At the time, they had an issue with Malaysian pirates. And there was a hell of a lot of very important ships to Australia's history that were actually lost to Malaysian pirates simply because they were trying to get from the settlements here in the Northern Territory to Indonesia and back in order to get resupplied. And that's going to, and the reason why this ties in is because that's going to be a very similar issue going forward when we start trying to colonize other planets in our solar system. Things like tools are going to be essential. But things like food, like topping up food and supplies like that are going to be more essential. Survival comes first, expanding comes second. So sending up the knowledge, and as part of the reason why, like as I said earlier, why I think that us preserving, modernizing, and also maintaining our knowledge. Go ahead, Alexis.
I was just going to point out, like in the chat there, somebody mentioned, where is it? Daniel, it'd have to be induction forges. I was literally just sitting here pondering this in my head while you're sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher to me. And in my head, I'm going, how the hell are you going to forge on Mars? What are you going to burn? I mean, yeah, you can split water to make hydrogen and oxygen, but good gosh, the amount of effort that's going to go into burning hydrogen to forge is insane. I mean, just literally because it takes so much energy to split water. And then I just like, oh wait,
induction.
Duh. You could totally do an induction forge, and you can make methane on Mars as well. So you could literally have a compressor to compress methane, and you could burn methane. Although the methane is probably more valuable as rocket fuel, and so induction forge would probably be the most efficient way to go. If you had a big enough battery bank with your little deal, you could say charge it with your solar panels and. It'd take you 4 days to charge up enough for 2 hours worth of forging, and if you're efficient enough, it shouldn't be a problem. Anyways, I wanted to say that before it flew away.
Yeah,
No,
no,
absolutely.
that's 100.
There are little intricate problems with every branch of thought with interplanetary and interstellar colonization, and then when you even take that off the interplanetary scale and look at it as like a space stations, or for interplanetary, interstellar, the hundreds of years that it would take for a ship to travel interstellar, even beyond what we're capable of right now. Those are generations that are going to live and die on a ship. So how to be a colony ship that also prepares a planetary colony, having technologies that don't rely on combustion and a waste of fuel to achieve, induction forging is a very solid answer. Then you find the energy used for induction forging. Where do you sacrifice that from other necessary, things, the power for that, and the solar, it's like, okay, so you'd have solar and battery banks that are specifically earmarked for induction heating,
Yep, and I mean Mars also has wind as well. So sticking up a turbine and creating some sort of electric current from that as well would also probably be an option as well. But John just said they can 3D print steel now. Why would you want to forge anything? Because that's creating something, and that also takes up a lot of energy. It would take up more energy to melt down a tool and then reprint it than it would to heat something up and fix it. And then you've got maintenance and all that type of thing. So that's the reason why, like I said, I believe this is an important skill, because we're still doing it. We're
it's an alternative,
modernizing it.
Because you bring up the 3D printing. You bring up the 3D printing. What if there is an issue with a 3D printer? You have to have the original skill. Even with induction forging, you still need to find a way to burn rocks or a fuel that is found at that location to have a primitive way to fix modern things.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, Daniel, I wouldn't say Mars's atmosphere is so thin that the wind has no real force, because we were able to fly a helicopter there, and they have they have dust storms that have enveloped the entire planet for like almost an entire year, and that's what happened to one of the I think it was Spirit, the Spirit rover. Got stuck in a sand hole and wasn't able to orient the solar panels quite in the right way, and they got covered with dust, and it ran out of power before it was able to clean its solar panels off. Anyways, that was because it got caught stuck, and then a sandstorm happened, and it died before the sandstorm cleared. So, that's fun.
Yeah, and David also said,
I think Oppie just died a year ago. So.
Yeah, like David said, you also need a forge to harden 3D printed tools and stuff like that. So this, like I said, this is still a skill that, to a certain degree, is essential. And like Yame says, and people of my age and above. So most of the people here, because I'm probably the youngest person in this whole in this thing at the moment, being 38, but it's only been generations. So my grandfather lived at a time where blacksmiths were still relatively essential. Now it's an artisanal thing, So we all know people who knew people, if we didn't know directly, when blacksmithing was essential. We're only 2 generations out from that. Also, it's been within the last 100 years that we went from horse and cart to being fully automotive. It's also been within the last 100 years where we went from sailing ships to aircraft, or with the last 120 years or 150 years, we've gone from sailing ships to aircraft. Our technology has come so far in the last 100, 150 years the face of our planet is the way we travel is entirely different to what it was in 150 years ago, 1900s.
Daniel said flying to the moon, and I always found it fascinating that it was just 40 some odd years from first flight to landing on the moon. 40 something years from first flight to landing on the moon. That is, the first flight was in 1921, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, you might be. Yeah. 40. I was thinking something else.
So it's almost 50 years, actually. So, I mean, it's 48. But, I mean, yeah, so 48 years from first flight to landing on the moon. That is an astounding leap in technology in such a very, very minuscule amount of time that it boggles my mind.
Technology moves exponentially. There's a thing with like, okay, so I'm a big fan of like fantasy genre, and we were actually discussing this in the pre-show. One of my favorite fictional book series, fictional book series is The Wheel of Time. Second would be the Pratchett, and we were talking about Pratchettarianism and this new religion and all that, and Discworld, if you don't know what Pratchett is. In Discworld, they address that technology advancing. In the Discworld novels, they address the technology advancing satirically, but they do. In most fantasy novels like Tolkien and the Wheel of Time series, technology is stagnant. Like thousands and thousands of years with no technological advances. Like these some of these kingdoms in like Tolkien, have been around for thousands of years with like still using horse and cart and bow and arrow, and essentially what compared to us is living in the Stone Age. So it's like that's not real. In reality, you have innovation, and technology moves exponentially, slow, and then boom, 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 and then it builds up, and the length of time between breakthroughs is shorter every time, to the point where you'll get to that last 1% of the stages of human civilization that Adam touched on earlier. That last 1% is the hardest, but once you break through that, final 1% to use the next level of energy technology, it moves faster and faster and faster, and then that whole process starts again. I don't think we're at that 1% point yet, or that last 99%. Consider it a progress bar, not like anything. Literally a progress bar for technology.
And that's true in the terms of transport. I mean, if you think about it, we've had horses and horses of cart for tens of thousands or 10,000 years. We've had locomotion, so trains and stuff like that, for maybe 200 to 300 years. I mean, they were building railways in the US in the 1800s.
But look, take if you're bringing up trains, take that specific technology, rail and engine to move things, and from when it first started to where it's at now, with the diesel electric, and you've got the monorail, and you got the bullet train and stuff like that. Like that technology, it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what I'm talking about, the progression of technology.
Yeah. But with transport, for example, like I said, we've had horse and cart for thousands of years. We've had locomotion or trains for 200-300 years. Then we've had automotive. Cars were invented at 1880s ish, 1870s. The first cars were invented, and they didn't start pumping out until and they really didn't start pumping out until the early 1900s. The first flight of the Wright brothers was in 1903. So we had that long build up, and then we had trains, then we had cars, then we had planes, we've had, so all these new forms of of transportation, right up until rocket power after the Second World War. Then we've gone, Second World War 1945, the Second World 1945 ish, 1948, the Second World War ended. We were in space on the moon by the 1960s. 20 odd years later from the end of the World War, when we discovered, when rocket power, chemical rocket propulsion was invented, to being on the moon within 20 years. And yes, since that, we have kind of stalled in the terms of transport.
Well, maybe not necessarily. Because
look
at it this way. Look at it this way. In that entire time that we've been using boosters to leave the planet, right? Every time you do, it's hugely expensive because all that material gets dropped to Earth and wasted and all that stuff. A week or two ago, Elon Musk caught a 40-story booster to be able to be patched up, refilled, and reused.
Yeah, but my point is that
That's
we haven't stalled technologically though. And just as Derain said, whilst we may not have made massive leaps in transportation, we have had massive leaps in computing. We have had massive leaps in telecommunications. We have had massive leaps in food production and all these other technologies that are necessary sure, 60 years ago, we probably could have made it to Mars, but we wouldn't have survived very, very long because we didn't have the technology, the supporting technology, the communications technology, and all the computing technology to be able to maintain that sort of thing. But now we're getting to a point as a civilization where we have all those supporting technologies in order to actually make a decent go of it. Might not be great to begin with.
Ben just brought something in the chat that I kind of want to address right quick. And it goes into the way the average person thinks about energy generation and why our lights turn on, and I can speak to this as an electrician. He says our water system is still gravity fed since like 1883. Only we don't use steam anymore. That is a very big misconception. Most of our generated power is steam power. Okay. We use different fuels, atomic, gas, coal, whatever, to create heat, to turn steam turbines, the generators that create our power at the power plants that then feed the distribution, and the grid. We run on steam. We heat that water in different ways, but we run on steam. So, and that kind of ties into a little bit, like if you squint your eyes and cock your head a bit, that ties into the whole blacksmithing thing of, it is, when you hear steam powered, you think like, the Victorian era steampunk and all that. Steam is steam itself, the act of steam moving engines is like, it's what we do, blacksmithing is a technology that is still used today in different forms, in different, when blacksmithing being, creating something, blah, 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 it's just not in the forefront anymore. It's not, you don't go to a blacksmith to get something done, You could argue that the whole like CNC 3D printing thing is a form of blacksmithing.
But that also ties back in another way, in the sense of, creating steam to power turbines. Okay, sure, we'll have solar and wind and all that type of thing in whatever colonies that we have interplanetary. Okay, and that will be a form of having power. But
of course,
creating steam to power steam turbines on whatever interplanetary settlement we have would actually serve dual purposes in the sense of, for example, the polar ice caps on Mars. By melting the polar ice caps to create steam to power a generator, for example, whether that's by solar or other means, would actually create power and also release the water and
The
purify
byproducts.
it so that humans can drink it. It would be a circular type of system to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So again, that kind of works on our future, at least in my opinion, our future and our ability to colonize planets will be a mixture of futuristic and like modern and futuristic technologies tied to a certain degree to the technologies that are in the past, like steam power, for example, blacksmithing. We're still like there's still going to be, for example, stonemasons. Like on Mars, there's no trees, there's no woods. There's no trees, there's no wood. Steel's going to be a prime resource, or metal's going to be a prime resource. So the most easily available building material on Mars is going to be Martian rock, Martian soil. There's already experiments on how to make concrete out of it and all that type of thing. So a stonemason is going to be a important trade going into interstellar settlement as well.
On that, and Alexis, maybe you can tie this all in, because it's like you do. Of the three of us, I know that you have studied stuff like this a lot more than us. Taking concrete, for example, okay? The materials that are on Mars, do we have the ability to make Martian concrete? Let me rephrase that. Not do we have the ability to. Do we know if there is the ingredients to make concrete on Mars?
We don't yet, but it's highly likely that we have the main thing that's going to be hard to come by is the lime, and if it's there, it's going to be it's going to be down below the surface and where the old lake beds are, and that would be indicative of past life, because lime is to an extent degraded limestone. And it's the bodies of dead sea creatures, and so it's possible that there isn't any lime there, or limestone even. So concrete might be an issue, but in lieu of concrete, you would do something like adobe, where it's mud bricks that are stacked and chinked together with whatever. That's completely doable. The only real thing is the problem you have with that. Then I mean, adobe is like a wet mixture or whatever. Well, the temperature on Mars is going to be below freezing, so it's not gonna. Your bricks aren't going to dry; they're going to freeze. You'd have to bake them in a kiln to dry them. You couldn't set them out in the sun to dry. It wouldn't work. And then the water that's on Mars isn't like you think of the ice caps here that are pure water ice. Well, the ice caps on Mars are a combination of water ice and carbon dioxide ice, but the water ice isn't pure water. It's brine water that is typically most commonly with perchlorate salts, not sodium, but like magnesium hypochlorite and things like that. These are going to be the salts that are in the deal, and those will be pulled out of during distillation to create steam, to create power, yada yada yada, and those are actually handy dandy little things for like blasting, and they're good ingredients for making things that move a lot of dirt really quick, and you can find them in the water there quite readily.
Well, here's a question.
That's kind of all I had to it. Because the reason we know that is because the melting point of those perchlorate salt water is so low, so low that's why there's evidence of running water still. Like we have pictures where a certain canyon wall looked like this, and then 10 years later we flew over and took the same picture, and now there's all these grooves in it where it looks like water's run down, right? And that's because at 40 below zero, perchlorate salt ice liquefies and runs. and so
Well-
the water can run on Mars at a much colder temperature than it can on Earth.
Here's a question I have for you there, because only because I don't know, and it would kind of lead into, further experimentation and discovery for building materials on Mars. Do we or do we not have core samples from the surface of Mars? I don't know. I'm asking because I don't know. We don't. Okay, not here.
They're on Mars.
Because that would be something interesting to get some core samples, and then find out what is in there and what we can use to make building materials.
Yeah, Perseverance on its trek across Gale Crater has been taking core samples and sealing them in little tubes and leaving them in its trail as it moves along. And and it's sealed up so that even if humans get there first, we can't contaminate the samples. And so they're planning. It's not quite worked out, but they're planning a return mission for the samples at a later date, where they're going to use something similar to the helicopter we have on Mars. I can't remember the name of that, and I was just reading about it this morning. But the helicopter did something like 60 flights before it broke, and it was only planned to do 2. Anyways, they're planning on sending something like that that's going to fly along that same path and pick those up and bring them back to a return module. That hasn't been all ironed out. I think the science is worked out, but the stuff hasn't been built yet. So
gotcha. Because that would be an interesting step for that. Finding out what we can do with the materials that are on hand there.
And we can find that out a lot because the rovers that we have there are Curiosity and Perseverance are like the size of a car. They've got a lot of science instruments on board with mass specs and gas chromatography and all that, and they can just take a little bit of rock. They got a little arm. They can reach down, grab a little bit of rock, put it inside the machine, zap it, and they can tell you exactly what it is, what it's made of, and then so you can just analyze the material with the robots and know what it is and what you can do with it. So, and that's also another point of it's not just the search for life, but it's also what's in the environment. What are the rocks made of? What's the dirt made of? What's underneath the rocks? Right now we don't have the ability to go very far, maybe just 12 to 18 inches is I think about as far as we can drill right now. So we don't get a really good representation of the layers underneath. And it's going to take people to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not something we're going to be able to do with a rover.
Yeah, no.
Because the weight of the equipment to do that with a rover is the automation of that is so great. I mean, like you could literally do it with a guy and a shovel, and it's gonna weigh. You're talking sending 60 kilos versus 600 kilos.
And that will be like the first I'd say couple of missions to Mars, particularly setting up when we go to Mars, it will be a minimum of a 2-year mission, simply because it's going to be 3 months there, and the window for the return and all that type of thing is 2 years. So we'll get there, we'll set up a scientific base, and surprisingly, that's kind of what the scientific research bases in Antarctica are about as well, in the sense of people in isolation for long periods of time in extreme conditions, how they can survive, and doing research under those conditions as well. So those first missions will be scientific missions in order to ascertain this type of information about the what we can do on Mars and how viable it will be to larger settlements and all that type of thing.
Well, and to that end, I strongly believe that the first humans to go won't be coming back. I'm fairly certain it's going to be a one-way trip for them, and I'm sure they know that before they leave. Their SpaceX is planning on sending the first round of Starships to Mars in 26, I believe. That's our next Mars transit window. Mm-hmm. And I think it's spring of 2026, I believe, is our next Mars transit window. And they're going to get off as many starships as they can, and they're going to test various different, the aero braking and the landing and different types of landing. They're gonna throw a bunch of different stuff at it and see what sticks. You know what I mean? for lack of a better term, some of them are gonna hit and blow up. Some of them are gonna land just fine. It's testing. You know what I mean? It's learning.
Yeah.
We don't know how this is gonna work. How are you doing when you're doing a propulsive landing on a big old pile of dirt? What about the rocks being thrown back up? Things like that. There's a lot of variables that we won't know until we try it. And then so those vehicles that survive can later become habitats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that is a massive structure. It's 40 stories tall and 30 meters wide. That's a
Pre-sent
lot of
supplies.
space.
Yeah, pre-sent supplies.
And if it's right, and since it's a test module, it's you're never going to lift back off in that. It's not designed to return to Earth and be refueled. You can scavenge the tank, all the metal that's in the fuel tanks and all that stuff. Like all of that stuff is reusable, and then you can just build basically a staircase and floors in one of those starships that manages to make it upright, and you've basically got a 40-story building on Mars. That's fairly decently radiation shielded.
Stock it with lye.
The stainless is going to do a good job at that. Huh?
Stock it with lye, so that you have lye on Mars.
Lime.
Yeah. Sorry, lye. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody loves key lime pie.
And that's the thing. Like there is a lot that will go into the setup for, and like Alexa says, unlike someone in the chat just said it before, like littering on Mars,
lawn darts.
Yes, yeah, lawn darts and littering. Yes, to a certain degree, but like Alexis was just saying, like a lot of the stuff that we send there in the early stages will be recycled or have the ability to be recycled. Steel and titanium and aluminium and all that type of thing, whilst there may be deposits on Mars, unlike Earth, we don't know where they are. So having those materials, yes, there will be the raw materials that eventually we could use, but to begin with, we don't know where they are. We don't know, we will have to recycle a lot in the initial stages.
Every single starship that fails on land, that fails to land, I'm sure a few of them are gonna not make it. I don't mean like burning up in entry is not gonna count, because that's vaporizing a lot of your material. But the ones that hit the ground and blow up there, or they tumble or whatever,
that's
and don't blow up, whatever. Each one of those is 600 tons of recyclable steel.
Yeah, that's a deposit.
So
and again,
that's a lot of raw material. It really is, and that's not even including like the engines and the plumbing and all of that stuff.
And see, and in saying that again ties back into blacksmithing, right? It's a lot less energy to have a blacksmith up there that has the ability to work with aluminium, and this also ties into why what we do as smiths now is also so important. Like those of us that have worked with titanium, I haven't, but I know a few people have. I know there's a certain large young blacksmith YouTuber that is currently working with titanium, titanium mascus or whatever. But us working with those materials now as blacksmiths, something that our forebears in the smithing trades didn't really do, is important, because as part of those future missions, recycling in the easiest way and the most energy efficient way, and knowing how to work these materials will be important. Knowing how to forge aluminium, knowing how to forge titanium, knowing how to forge different metals apart from just steel. All of which will be components. These rockets even have copper. So having a bit of ability to be a redsmith will be an essential thing, because recycling, adapting a material and reusing it as opposed to completely melting it down. Reusing it that way is a hell of a lot easier than and energy efficient than melting it down. And
so what you're
working
saying
out
is
those
we need to send
temperatures.
Roy.
Yeah, but working out these things is going to be essential, and people, us as individuals on a broad spectrum, humans, unless we're paid to think about these intricate details, we don't think about these intricate details. Like, for example, thinking about eventually a stonemason, and like people who know how to build underground homes, like those that we have here in Australia in Coober Pedy and Lightning Ridge. That will probably be an essential skill on Mars because, hey, it's easy to build underground by digging a hole and knowing how stone works, and building a hole in the ground, kind of like a hobbit hole, is going to be, apart from the rockets and stuff like that where we can build above ground, going underground is going to be easier and to a certain degree safer because of the wind and stuff like that happens on Mars. Yeah. So these types of things we're not, as a broader species, generally don't think about, but is important, and it's the reason why these trades and traditional trades are important, in my opinion. Like I said, blacksmithing particularly, because recycling these materials and stuff like that is going to need to happen. Us learning how to forge titanium and how to forge, aluminium and how to forge all these different metals is going to be a key factor in how we develop as an interplanetary species in the near future, within a generation or two.
Precisely. Now, I think you did a very good job of tying the importance of blacksmithing to the topic. I just looked at the clock and holy shit, I got some shit I got to do. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and whether you're getting paid for it or not, think about it. So we move on to our final thoughts. Alexis, do you have anything else before we final thought it?
No. Well, I mean, I just got final thoughts. That's all.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want to cut anybody off if they're on a train, but
no. I'm good. I was just looking at the clock, going, "Ooh, we're running over."
Yeah, because I know you got work. So, but yeah, let's move on to our final thoughts. Go ahead.
I'll give mine. Yeah, I mean, like, no, it hadn't really occurred to me that blacksmithing is going to be as kind of handy as it will be on Mars. I mean, the thing, the ability to rework all of the material that's going to be there by the time we get people there is going to be important. I mean, because like, okay, we can go cut a chunk out of this oxygen tank that's empty, or I can go like dig up the raw material, 3 tons of raw material and purify it and melt it down and make it from scratch. Now, I'm going to use the stuff that's already ready to go, where all I got to do is just cut a chunk out of it and punch a hole in it. Voila, pickaxe. And it's not just iron, it's 304X stainless steel. I mean, like, it's going to have a little oomph to it. Anyways, so yeah, blacksmithing or at least metallurgy, or someone knowledgeable in that aspect is going to be important as we expand outward, especially in the early stages of each expansion. Because at the early stage of each expansion, you're basically starting from scratch, and
yes.
and you can't just keep bringing everything from where you came from. Eventually, you have to be self-sufficient, and that's going to require a certain level of knowledge of blacksmithing. And so, I can only hope that I live long enough to see the first people step on Mars. I'm so hopeful to make it to that milestone, because it's exciting.
It should be soon.
It gives me hope. So,
in the grand scheme of things, it should be soon.
I would think so. I would think maybe by the 30 or the 32
window.
Anyways, that's all I got, y'all. Y'all have a good weekend, or have a good fortnight. And I will keep you updated when I need to keep you updated on the other stuff. Otherwise, we're just going to be working and saving money. So I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So yeah, my final thoughts is like Alexa said. You know, it's really eye opening to think about just exactly what's going to be needed on the micro level of you know, not just the macro level of, yeah, this is, you know, we've got to travel this far and all that type of thing, and, you know, lots of money and space exploration, all that type of thing. But the intricate details, the micro level of what needs to be done. I, like Alexis, I hope my age, I probably will be around long enough to be able to, you know, see this time, this type of thing happen. But also what's exciting is we as a community are now training / inspiring those that may go on to do it or may go on to train and inspire those that do it. The marks that we're leaving now as a community is going to leave a mark on humanity interstellarly for the rest of history. We're maintaining something that, you know, we all hear it all the time. Oh, that's a dying trade. We're keeping it alive to keep us alive. And that is mind-blowing. And that makes me excited. Anyway,
right.
That's my final thought.
My final thoughts, you know, the usual. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the continued support over the years. And you bring up that whole joke of fly me to Mars, or you know, legit. We may be a decade or so away from the first colony on Mars, a decade or two away. I would volunteer to go, hands down, even knowing that I would never come back, or it's very possible of failure. The payment, the only payment I would ask, hey, set me up so that until you all are ready for me to hop on that ship, set me up so that I'm comfortable. Not freaking, you know, rolling in dough, but set me up so that I don't have to worry about anything until then. And I will go, no questions asked. Same thing with Neuralink. I'll get a Neuralink. Just set me up so I don't got to worry about shit. You know, I'm all about the advancements of the human species. And if it takes blacksmithing to do so, so be it. Get out there, light your induction forges, grab some Martian rocks, and beat some, Martian metal. Everybody have a good day. We are out.
Bye.